Step 9, intimacy anorexia. This is a really big step for IAs. You definitely want to get this one down, do it well. So I want you to really take your time through this one. Now, if you haven't subscribed, please do. There's lots more steps ahead of us. If you have a question, please write it in the box. Let's get that to you as soon as possible. So stay tuned. Step 9 for intimacy anorexia. This is critical. So I'm going to read the step and then we're going to take our time and parse through this. Step 9, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, this is important as we walk through this as intimacy anorexics. We've hurt people. Of course, we've hurt our spouse probably the most by far because intimacy anorexia shows up primarily there. But you're a human being. Whether you're a man or woman, you've hurt other people as well. It might not be just because of intimacy anorexia. It might be because you took money. It might be because you lied. It might be because you misrepresented yourself. It might be because you didn't show up for someone on a certain occasion. Whatever it is that you need to make amends for, you already know that. You did your step 8, you know who, you know what you did, you know what they could have felt. And so now we need to do step 9. We want to make direct amends to such people whenever possible. Now, direct is direct. As much as possible, face-to-face is recommended. Now, if you're married, you're going to have to be wise about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But direct is direct. It can be face-to-face. It can be a phone call. Now, depending on what you're apologizing for, if you're going to do any kind of writing or emailing or anything on a social media format as far as like Zoom or something like that, you need to understand that that's permanent and they might use it in a way that might not be your heart's intent. So best to do face-to-face, but if they're in another country or the other part of the country, you might need to make a phone call if you can track them down, okay? And that's a whole nother issue, but make direct as much as possible. Now, as an intimacy anorexic, this is gonna definitely hit your good box, bad box. You have to be willing to say, you know what, I need to own responsibility. You became willing, and then do it. You will feel better owning the stuff that you're flawed at, the mistakes you did make in your family, as a father, as a spouse, as a mother, whatever relationship it is, in your sibling relationships. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So you want to be able to make your amends directly whenever possible. Now, this next part of the sentence is really important. And it's not a get out of jail card. It's not for you to decide who you're going to make amends to and who you're not going to, but based on how expensive it is for you emotionally. This is really something you think through with a sponsor, a therapist, and maybe your spouse, depending on what kind of amend you are making, especially if it's previous romantic relationships. You need to honor the marriage that you're in if you're married. Now, where it says, except when to do so would injure them or others, you want at least 2 more opinions that they think it would be something that would really harm the other person or harm other people if you did this. And there are circumstances where that is possible. And, these steps were written for alcoholics and so they maybe did things that you wouldn't think of doing, but you did your things. So that before you give yourself a get out of jail card, get 2 other opinions that yes, that person, you probably shouldn't make that amend. But you could still write a letter of amend to that person and then throw it away. You could do an empty chair thing where you role play, asking forgiveness of them or taking responsibility with them so that you are not avoiding the pain you caused. And it may be someone that you can't track down, okay? Well, then that's wherever possible. Then I would say, if you can't track them down, write the letter or do an empty chair thing so that you can look at the things you did on step 8 and you can check off that to the best of your ability, you made an amend in some way, fashion, or form about that. Now, lastly, I want to talk about outcome. Because some people go into recovery and, they think, well, if I do this, it's going to, reconnect the relationship. They're going to trust me again. They're going to like me again. That may happen. And sometimes it does. When you say, I'm taking responsibility for this. I'm asking you to forgive me for this. I own my behavior. For some people, that might be bridge making. But for some people, they don't want a relationship with you anymore. They've moved on. They're done. It's not important to them. So don't make the outcome any expectation that you have. The outcome you're looking for is, I took responsibility for everything I could, and I feel good about that. I feel good about my past. And that's the outcome that you want. Now, I remember doing my step 9 and going to every person. Now, I did that before I was married, so I didn't have to work with my spouse. If you're married, you need to consult, especially if it's previous romantic relationships. Because as IA, some of those people you've idealized and maybe you even masturbated to, and your spouse knows that about you, and they don't want you to go talking to Susie or John because of your past idealization of that relationship. Okay? You're not willing to do day in, day out with that person, but you're willing to kind of think that they were ideal. And especially if you've been avoiding intimacy by, wow, I wish I would have married that person because it gives you distance in your current marriage. That person's name has a sting in your spouse's life. So you want to definitely talk through that. But as I did step 9, I went through every person and I just got lighter as I went along. And it made me feel good about my past. There's no one in my past that I need to apologize for. And I'm really glad I did that. And as you do the maintenance steps, you don't create a past where you have to apologize. You do that along the way. So I really encourage you, do a really thorough step 9. If you have anyone you think is an exception, get 2 opinions before you decide that you need to do it in an indirect way or in a way where you write a letter or do an empty chair. Step 9 is critical for your recovery, so please do a good job. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. And if you need to ask a question, please feel free to do that. We'll get back to you as soon as possible.